Time for another edition of For Your Health. Dr. Naikai Butler is hanging with us somewhere. I think she's testing some hearing, maybe. That could be a big hint as to what we're going to talk about here. How many of you find yourself saying, what'd you say? Oh, pardon me, I can't hear you. I mean, it's unbelievable how prevalent it is, especially in younger people. It's not just in older people, in younger people. What is it? Have we just turned up the music too loud in our headphones? What is it that we're doing to ourselves? So I thought it'd be fun to have her on to talk about that and talk about hearing aids, frankly. I just had lunch with somebody, and he was 27. He had hearing aids. I had no idea. He said, hold on a second, and he did something with his ear, and then he told me I have problems hearing. So how about that? Hey, Dr. Butler, thanks for coming on America Tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So I didn't realize that the guy that I had lunch with, David, I didn't realize that he had a hearing aid. And you know why? Because it was like invisible. A lot of hearing aids are that way now, aren't they?
They are. The hearing aid manufacturers are working hard to put out products that are cosmetically appealing so people feel confident about wearing them and that they're not noticeable to others who see them with the hearing aid.
Yeah, what is it about? Was I right about the music thing? I mean, are you seeing demographics across the board as far as hearing loss?
Yes, as an industry, we are. More and more people are using their phones and MP3 players more hours of the day, and it's starting to cause a hearing loss. Those little devices, even though they're so small, they can crank out dangerously loud levels, and people just are not aware that keeping the volume too loud on these items can cause a hearing loss if you're using them continuously over time.
So is that part of it? Like, we should really seriously just put them down once in a while and not constantly have that going?
We need a combination of two things. So if you're going to use it loud, cranked all the way up, you want to only do that for a very short period of time. You can use it longer throughout the day, but you need to keep the volume down to a safe level. And you might be asking, well, what is a safe level? iPods and MP3 players can crank out up to 115 decibels of sound. And right when a sound gets to the level of 85 decibels, you're getting in that danger zone where it can start to damage your hearing. So the louder the sound, the shorter amount of time you want to expose yourself to it. If you're going to listen to it at below 85 decibels, go ahead and use it as many hours a day as you want to. But if you're cranking it up above that level, you really need to be watchful. Do that as least often as possible.
Yeah. What about, talking about baby boomers and people that have undiagnosed hearing loss? Because you know this, Doc. I mean, you know that people are so reluctant to even get physicals. I mean, how many people go to doctors, let alone go to the eye doctor and the hearing doctor? But there's problems with this. Like I said, you have a lot of people struggling, saying, what'd you say? And what is it about denying the hearing thing? Because is it because we automatically think it has to do with getting old?
I really do believe that. People, it's two things. This problem is silent in that it's something that people can't see necessarily, that you have a hearing problem, and it doesn't hurt physically. It doesn't cause pain. So people try to ignore it and brush it under the rug. And typically from when a person first notices a problem, they wait up to 10 years before they talk to their doctor about it and actually get a hearing test. They just keep trying to ignore it like the problem is going to go away, but actually it just gradually gets worse. So when a person does finally come in and get a hearing test and they find out, yes, it's real, you have a hearing loss, it takes them a good year or two to accept it and before they're ready to make a change or to take action and get the hearing aids. And many times it's because they feel that it's associated with age, that they're getting older. It means they're old. And just like you were mentioning with the 27-year-old you were with, this hearing problem sees no age limit. I mean, I fit hearing aids on newborn babies up to people who are 100 years old. So it doesn't have a factor to do with age, but many people associate needing hearing aids as they're aging.
Yeah, and that's that thing. And, if they wait that long, do they cause more damage by waiting?
They do. walking around with a hearing problem and not using hearing aids or doing anything about it, it is associated with dementia and decreased cognitive abilities, and it's also associated with something called auditory deprivation. So it's kind of like the theory is you don't use it, you lose it. So you have these sounds you're not hearing well, your brain just gets used to not hearing them well, completely tunes them out, and it goes so long with this deficit. When we try to come in and attempt to help you with hearing devices or hearing aids, it's very difficult for you to adjust to the sound, and your brain has kind of just blocked those sounds out because it hasn't heard it in so long. So it can make the transition of using hearing aids very difficult.
All right, Dr. Naikai Butler, so what do? We go get a hearing test, right?
Sure. First of all, teach all of your loved ones about protecting their hearing. Hearing loss, this noise-induced hearing loss is preventable. So just be careful when you're around loud noises and use hearing protection as much as you can. And if you think you have a problem or you suspect a loved one has a problem with hearing, get a hearing test. It could be something as simple as earwax black in the ear. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need a hearing aid. Just go get tested to find out exactly what's going on. And if you find out that you do have a hearing loss and you need a hearing aid, take action and do something about it. Get them and go on about living your life.
Excellent, excellent advice. Doc, thanks so much for coming on America tonight. I hope everybody is hearing what she's saying. Appreciate it.
All right, you have a great day.
All right, so the big thing is, obviously, with Dr. Butler talking about hearing, how many of you have found, it's like I said to her, how many of you have found yourself saying, oh, wait a second, I didn't really hear you, or pardon me, I'm not really sure I heard what you said. And I think part of that is, and she mentioned it briefly, is the whole cell phone thing too, because you're on the cell phone and people are talking and you're talking louder, or you're trying to talk through a speakerphone, which some people would say, well, that's better, but not necessarily. It's where we're not detecting, we're not picking up some of the things that we used to pick up. And I think we're going to find that it's more common of younger people having to have some kind of a hearing aid, which it's interesting because in the beginning now, I mentioned my friend and having lunch, and he's under 30, that he had a clear hearing aid, so I didn't even have any idea. And I think that's going to be more the norm. So disguising it, they've gotten better and they're different than how they used to be. But that hearing loss is unbelievable. I really think that it's, you think of all of your senses, smell and taste and vision, but hearing, and so much of that is, as people would say, is based on physical movement. So once you lose that, once you can't, once it's kind of iffy as to what was being said and you're trying to pick it up, I honestly think that this is the new frontier. I mean, it's already here, but I think it's even bigger than that. We were talking there about people not getting checkups, and I think that that's going to become such a mandatory thing for so many people because of the idea of the volume of having the headsets on, of the cell phone, like we were saying, I just mentioned there. I think it's going to get that much worse in people not being able to detect the sounds that they used to be. That was just such a normal, everyday part of life. But these, the vibrations that an object produces, sound when it vibrates, that's it. Whether it's solid, whether it's a liquid like water or gas, that kind of stuff. Perhaps those are different when you talk about auditory, but words and somebody having a conversation with you and somebody with a soft voice, how you're going to hear that through the amount of, I think, hearing loss that people have. What do they say? It's like 20% now, something like that, in the neighborhood of 20%. It was crazy. I was reading a story the other day as to younger people versus older people and where they were, where most of this was happening. And the struggle is really across the board. But with baby boomers aging and millions of people that are undiagnosed with hearing loss, There are some studies that are floating around that have it at 20% of our population struggling with hearing. Yikes. If you're one of those people, it'd be worth it to go and get that checked out for sure. All right, stay with us. Much more to come here on America Tonight.